Hello from the studio African Utility Week. I'm Rose Bundock and I'm joined now by David Schaub-Jones, co-founder of SeeSaw. I believe you assist water utilities with ICT development and infrastructure.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we do. We work mostly in Africa, and it's helping water utilities understand what the developments in ICT, information communications technology, are, put them into place with them, and we develop software they use.
Can you tell us what the water metering landscape is like at the moment in Africa?
Yeah, I think that's been a topic of debate the last couple of days here at African Utility Week, and I think it splits into sort of three main camps. There's and partly that comes down to who's selling equipment and who's buying the equipment, but there's proponents of smart meters and an interest in, okay, what can smart meters do for Africa? What are they doing in a place like Denmark, and can that be sort of copied, if you like, or enhanced even in Africa? There's proponents of prepaid systems and looking at that technology, and then there's people like SeeSaw more focusing on, okay, what are the existing meters doing and how can we use new technology, whether it's smartphones or customers using their own phone to improve metering that side. And those three camps, I think, are still in discussion, and the utilities are still trying to make up their minds of which way to go.
So what are the exciting things in ICT coming through? You mentioned from kind of Northern Europe. What's kind of exciting you that you could see could bring benefit to Africa?
Yeah, well, I think that's where it gets interesting comparing Africa with Europe, because if you look at what happened with M-Pesa in Kenya, you see that Kenya sort of took a march and leaped ahead of where Europe was using cell phones and then also now smartphones for mobile payments. And I think you're seeing the potential for similar things in Africa, getting actually customers themselves to use their phones, whether it's to send you the meter reading or to liaise with you about paying the bill with their phone or sending them their invoice by SMS, which is maybe not so common in Europe, where the postal system works, where people are used to getting their bill the ways they've always got it, and where the banking system is quite different.
Okay. Sorry, just thinking of my next question. It's getting a bit late in the afternoon. Can you talk about any particular ICT pilot projects that you're working on that would, be applicable all over Africa?
Yeah, look, I think there's a couple. We're working in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we're working in Angola, and we're working here in South Africa with Etequeni municipality. And it's two different things that I think are interesting. One is using smartphones and putting them in the hands of the staff of the utilities, and the meter readers, who are currently doing their job often using paper elsewhere in Africa, not the case in Denmark. But getting them to use smartphones to, say, enter meter readings, to take photos of meters, but also there and then being able to figure out, okay, based on this meter reading and the information that you've managed to synchronize onto a smartphone, how much does that customer owe you? And in a place where we're trialing it in Durban, where the postal system doesn't work, going one step further and having a mobile printer, such as the ones you see in restaurants, and printing the bill there and then and giving it to the customer, and even getting payment there and then. So I think that's quite exciting for utilities in that it allows them to get around a few of the constraints they've got. And on the other side, actually engaging with customers themselves. So we have a system that uses missed calls. It works with any phone. It doesn't cost customers anything, but if you like, they can signal various things to the utilities, such as their bill didn't arrive or they're dissatisfied with the service they're getting. And these are the sort of things you won't see happening in Europe, because the context there is very different.
Yeah. I mean, there seems to be still a debate about the right metering communication technology. I don't know if anyone's, categorically proved one spectrum is better than the other. What's your kind of feeling on it? What are you seeing succeed?
Well, I mean, tomorrow, part of a discussion which is sort of the pros and cons of prepaid approaches versus working with what's now postpaid, paid after you get the bill, and innovating there. And then we had a talk on smart meters earlier, and I think one of the things somebody said about smart meters is they love them in Denmark because the cost of labour is very high, and you no longer have to send out the meter readers to read the meter. The smart meter sitting there with effectively sending out the information every 16 seconds itself. Well, here in Africa, the utilities I work with, labour's cheap, and already it's not a position where you're going to dismiss staff because you've bought a new technology. That's not the landscape we're in. So why not make that meter reader more effective, get them taking the meter readings, putting them on a phone, but also engaging with your customers. You actually got someone in there visiting your customers, and at the same time they're walking all over your network. They can report other things such as leaks. So I think that's the sort of debate we're having, is whether technology replaces people, and in terms of prepaid versus postpaid, do people prefer to pay upfront, know how much they can afford and have it drained down, or do they prefer the system that they've currently got, which is paying afterwards?
So are smart water networks applicable in Africa?
Yeah, I think it depends how you define them. If a smart water network is getting the information in a timely fashion and using it, such as using the existing meter readings you've got and starting to analyze seasonal trends, whose consumption has suddenly dropped. Perhaps there's an illegal connection, whose consumption has suddenly risen compared to all their neighbors. Maybe there's a leak. Then you're already into smart systems. It's not a question of putting SIM cards in every meter. So I think that we're in an era of smart systems already. You see a lot of these utilities are accepting payment by cell phones. In a way, that's a smart system. So it depends how you define it, and I think each utility needs to make a sensible choice about how they want to spend what, after all, is a limited capital budget, and also how much of a shock they want to put their staff through into trying new things.
What are the motivations for utilities looking at water metering? I mean, obviously it varies country to country, but what are you seeing?
Well, I think that's where prepaid's interesting, in that you've got three different types of prepaid meter. You've got the prepaid meter that goes into a household. You've got the prepaid meter that goes into an institution, maybe even a government ministry, and then you've got prepaid meters that were sort of adding to or replacing stand posts where people come and fill up buckets. And a recent report by the World Bank looked at those three categories and said, okay, for somebody who's having trouble getting their government to pay, fantastic. This prepaid meter where they have to pay in advance, you get your money back, within a couple of months. Now, that's if you're strong enough to force that ministry to accept prepaid business. The case for actually putting them in every household was very different on the other hand. This report says, look, it probably doesn't make financial sense. There's other things you can do to get the supposed benefit of prepaid. And then for these water kiosks that are serving poorer customers, if it's done right, it can benefit them because you're taking a vendor out of the situation, you're making water cheaper for people. And I think that was a nice categorization of three different subsectors that African water utilities face and where innovations have different impacts.
And what kind of pushback are utilities experiencing in metering people for the first time for water?
Yeah, I think it depends again on from place to place, but some people who appreciate that now they're able to manage their consumption and better understand how much they're using and when they're using it, who are willing to pay, there's not much pushback. Those who've been getting water for free and don't see any reason to change, yeah, obviously there's pushback there. And the pushback is greater where you put in a prepaid system and you remove the ability to sort of be soft about it, to discuss things. And so that's, if you haven't got that angle right, if you don't understand how the customer's going to respond and you don't engage them and you try and put in a hard technology, you're going to struggle.
I mean, I think I've heard a lot of people talking about engaging customers, but no one's actually said how they're going about it. Have you seen anything in action, like almost an official customer engagement program, as you would get perhaps in the States or Europe?
I think National Water from Uganda spoke yesterday about their program, and that was very interesting in that they're sort of using the carrot and the stick. They're working with churches, with mosques to engage customers, to explain to them where water comes from, how much it costs, the need to pay. And on the other hand, if people are not responsive, they're pulling in the police to disconnect people who are illegal connections. And so I thought that was an interesting example of somebody who's trying new things and making progress.
Yeah. What's your opinion? I'm sure you've heard of the situation in Ireland where people are being water metered for the first time.
Okay.
And there's been fierce, violent resistance.
Okay.
I don't know if you have an opinion on that. Or...
Well, I think, the same. There weren't meters in the UK 15, 20 years ago, and that was a big debate. And the water utilities themselves were worried about the cost. Now, so I think it makes sense. In a world where demand is only growing and water resources are finite, you should pay for what you use. and water metering is an excellent way to get people to pay attention to how much they're using. So I think it's coming, and I see why some people resist, but I think we need to move beyond that.
I was hearing earlier from Ericsson that they've developed an emergency base station which they can implement in, obviously in disaster areas. What kind of other ICT innovation is coming through which we might see in Africa in the next year?
Yeah, I think some of the things you see around water treatment are quite interesting. Being able to tell the purity of water as it changes over time, particularly where drought comes in and affects the water quality, and having that remotely sent, being able to engage citizens by using SMS, sending those out. I think those are the sort of things that are coming that are quite interesting. And some of it's got to do with drinking water and some of it's got to do with water resources, but there's a lot happening, and particularly areas that are dry like northern Kenya, there's a lot of emphasis and push for innovation. I mean, Kenya is a very innovative place when it comes to ICT, and it's places like that I think we'll see interesting things.
So they've got good infrastructure in the country, ICT infrastructure that would kind of enable.
Yeah, they've both
solutions.
got that, but they've also just, they're willing to innovate, they're willing to try new things. They've got a young, dynamic population that are excited about what SMSs, what apps can do. They've got a population that are snapping up smartphones. I think these are the places where we'll see really interesting things come out in the next few years.
Great. Thanks very much, David. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Rose.
Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more interviews soon. Thank you.